Your Honor, he's not a symbol. He's somebody who is afforded the right to a fair trial. He's innocent until proven guilty.
Luigi Mangione, the man accused of gunning down the United Healthcare CEO in the middle of Manhattan, won't be back in court when we had expected. His federal court date's been pushed back so that his formidable defense team and one of the country's most successful prosecution offices can prepare to do battle.
On December 4th, 2024, most New Yorkers were going about their day unaware that a tragic event was about to unfold. For Brian Thompson, the CEO of United Healthcare, it would be his final day. On that early winter morning, while the city buzzed in preparation for the annual Rockefeller Center Christmas tree lighting, a targeted attack occurred in the heart of Manhattan. Around 6:45 a.m., Thompson was walking toward the New York Hilton Midtown, where his company was holding its investor conference. Little did he know, a person dressed in black with a gray backpack had been scouting the area, waiting patiently for several minutes on West 54th Street. Surveillance cameras captured the individual standing still, ignoring the passing commuters while focusing intently on Thompson as he crossed to the opposite side of the street. The shooter then calmly crossed the street, closing the distance between them, before raising his firearm and firing multiple shots. Thompson was struck in the calf and back, collapsing to the ground. Witnesses described the attack as swift and calculated, with the shooter remaining calm and collected, even adjusting his weapon after it appeared to jam, before firing again as he moved closer to his target. As the shots rang out, a woman standing nearby fled in terror, and Thompson barely had time to turn and face his attacker before succumbing to his injuries. The chilling moment was all captured in surveillance footage, providing investigators with a clear trail of evidence. For days, the nation anxiously followed the search for the man responsible for the shocking murder of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson. Despite the clear image painted by the footage and witness accounts, the gunman's identity remained elusive.
A hearing, which again might be scheduled for February. But just days after that, Mangione is scheduled to be in state court for an appearance because that is where he has already been indicted. Mangione is charged in New York State Court with 11 counts, including murder in the first degree, criminal possession of a weapon, and having a forged instrument. And that is in connection with Mangione allegedly using a ghost gun, a weapon made from at least some 3D parts, to shoot Brian Thompson as he walked to the Hilton Hotel in Manhattan. So that's the allegation. And officials say he was lying in wait, ready for Thompson as he walked past, heading for an investors conference for the healthcare giant. Then hopped on a bicycle. Law enforcement was able to track him through Central Park, spotted him on surveillance in a taxi cab, headed to a bus station. By the way, they believe this is all Mangione. And after an intense manhunt, someone at a McDonald's in nearby Altoona, Pennsylvania, spotted who they thought was the suspect.
It was Luigi Mangione, the 26-year-old University of Pennsylvania graduate, now wanted for one of the year's most shocking crimes. Initially, Mangione tried to maintain his cover, handing over a New Jersey ID, one of several fake documents he had on him. But his facade began to crumble as officers pressed him further. When asked if he had recently been in New York, Mangione froze. His hands shook, his voice faltered, and the tension in the room became palpable. Officers could sense that the truth was slipping from him. Officers noted the drastic change in Mangione's demeanor, proof they believed they had the right person. Realizing the game was up, Mangione eventually admitted his identity. When asked why he had lied, his response was simple yet revealing. "I clearly shouldn't have," he said. Before becoming the center of a nationwide manhunt, Mangione was seen as a young man with limitless potential. At just 26 years old, he had an impressive resume: University of Pennsylvania graduate with degrees in engineering and computer science, praised for his intellect and ambition. To those who knew him, he was a driven individual with a future as bright as his academic accolades. But beneath the surface, something darker was brewing. A 26-year-old Ivy League graduate, former high school valedictorian, and the son of a wealthy and influential Maryland family, Mangione's life began with privilege and potential. He graduated at the top of his class from the prestigious Gilman High School in Baltimore in 2016, earning valedictorian honors for maintaining a high GPA. He captained the school's robotics team, won academic scholarships, and built a reputation as a kind and hardworking student. From there, he attended the University of Pennsylvania, where he earned dual degrees in engineering, a Master of Science in Computer and Information Science, and a Bachelor of Science in Computer Science with a minor in mathematics. Mangione thrived academically, working as a teaching assistant and founding a video game development club during his time at Penn. In the summer of 2019, he was a head counselor for Stanford University's pre-collegiate studies program, further solidifying his image as a rising star. After leaving Penn in 2020, Mangion's life seemed to take a different direction. According to his LinkedIn, he worked as a data engineer at TrueCar, a role that showcased his technical skills and continued to build his career in the tech industry. But the company confirmed that his employment ended in 2023. Between January 2022 and April of that year, Mangione lived in Surfbreak, a co-living community in Honolulu, Hawaii. Back pain became a major source of his frustration, as he could no longer enjoy surfing, an activity he had hoped to embrace due to a chronic back injury. His frustration grew, and by April 2022, Mangione left Surfbreak, citing his physical limitations. Members of the community noted a noticeable change in him. He returned briefly to Hawaii in 2023, where he started a book club with controversial reading material, which caused discomfort among some members. A few of them ended up leaving the club because of this. Mangione's online activity also began reflecting his growing disillusionment.
A wealth of case law guaranteeing his right to a fair trial, but none of the safeguards have been put in place yet here. In fact, it's just the opposite of what's been happening. He's a young man, and he is being treated like a human ping pong ball between two warring jurisdictions here. These federal and state prosecutors are coordinating with one another, but at the expense of him. They have conflicting theories in their indictments, and they are literally treating him like he is like some sort of political fodder, like some sort of spectacle.
His Goodreads account showed that he had read works like Industrial Society and Its Future by Ted Kaczynski, The Unabomber, as well as books critiquing the healthcare industry. On X, formerly known as Twitter, he reposted quotes like, "It's no measure of health to be well-adjusted to a profoundly sick society." Before Luigi Mangione's life took a dark turn, there were already signs of trouble that worried those close to him. Family and friends noticed a growing sense of isolation in the months leading up to the event. His social media presence dwindled, and posts on X from concerned friends painted a picture of someone who had cut himself off from the world. "Nobody has heard from you in months," one post from October read. While another post from July pleaded, "I don't know if you're okay or just in a super isolated place and have no service, but I haven't heard from you in months." When Luigi Mangione was arrested, investigators found a handwritten manifesto that offered insight into his growing resentment towards corporate America. According to Joseph Kenney, the chief of detectives, the document expressed ill will towards corporate America. Though specific details were initially withheld, two law enforcement officials familiar with the document's contents revealed that it specifically criticized healthcare companies, accusing them of prioritizing profits over patient care. For Mangione, this manifesto wasn't just a collection of grievances, it was a culmination of years of frustration and disillusionment, laying the groundwork for the events that followed. Now, setting the documentary-style commentary aside for a second, I want to give you my 2 cents on this entire story. First of all, this has been one of the most talked about stories on social media over the last week, and Luigi Mangione has, as of today, been captured by law enforcement. The response to this entire situation isn't exactly what you would expect, or maybe it is, considering the circumstances. I say that for 2 different reasons. Number 1, someone was, at the end of the day, brutally murdered. When it comes to death of any kind, I like to approach these types of topics with a more respectful tone.
They probably are housing him in a unit, but keeping him away from others until they can do like what I would call a threat assessment to see, would he be okay to interact with others and others to be okay to interact with him.
He isn't in solitary confinement, but the other part you said is correct too, that he's having limited interactions with other inmates. So what do you think his day-to-day could then look like if he's in a cell completely alone? I know that the DOC mentioned that inmates do have time outside if they so choose to use that time. But what do you think his day-to-day may look like?
Probably, in the morning, get up, have breakfast. I'm sure medical staff are probably entering his unit, to check on him and other inmates to see if there's any issues that need to be addressed. I'm sure he's probably having some interviews with law enforcement, maybe not every day, but I'm sure at some point in the day, he's probably being interviewed. And I'm almost certain that psychological staff, team members are probably making rounds on a daily basis, along with the executive team members are probably monitoring all of his activities. And I'm also certain that I'm sure he's probably given some limited recreational time, whether it's, taking him to the recreation area or in a certain unit, they may have an area where he may be able to have a little bit of time outside of his cell. So that's probably what his day-to-day is looking like right now.
I want to make it very clear I do not condone any type of violence, nor do I celebrate the death of another human being. Now, with that little disclaimer out of the way, we need to talk about the real side of this entire topic because healthcare companies and the damage they've caused to real lives is a real conversation we need to have. Do I feel sorry for the families who are going to be paying the price in terms of emotional pain? Yes, I do. However, when it comes to a story involving one of the shot callers at a healthcare company, we're talking about the CEO here. So in this case, the shot caller of a company that has ruined countless lives, just being brutally honest, I really don't have any tears to give. And this seems to be the general stance on this entire conversation.
He was on display for everyone to see in the biggest staged perp walk I've ever seen in my career. It was absolutely unnecessary. He's been cooperative with law enforcement. He had been in custody for over a week. He waived extradition. He was cooperative at all accounts. There was no reason for the NYPD and everybody to have these big assault rifles that, frankly, I had no idea was in their arsenal. And to have all of the press there, the media there, it was like perfectly choreographed. And what was the New York City mayor doing at this press conference, Your Honor? That just made it utterly political. And as Your Honor knows, under Lauro v. Charles, the Court of Appeals for the Second Circuit has held it to be clearly established that these staged perp walks to the media, unrelated to a legitimate law enforcement objective, is.
From what I've noticed, most people are leaning towards not only feeling indifferent about the victim in this case, but also celebrating Luigi Mangione as a hero. Social media, in a way, thrives off meme culture, especially when it comes to viral stories like this, and that's why tweets like these have become the general consensus. The screenshot and memes about Luigi Mangione circulating on social media, including one saying, "No, don't get caught by the police, you're so sexy," or the one with a Tony Soprano picture, and the caption in this house, "Luigi Mangione is a hero, end of story," really highlight the twisted sense of humor and dark admiration some people have for him. While it's easy to laugh at the memes, the deeper issue here is the anger and frustration towards healthcare companies like United Healthcare. Many people are coming out to share their personal experiences with the company, some of which are truly horrifying. One example comes from a TikTok video where a mother shared a heartbreaking experience she had with United Healthcare involving herself and her baby. It's moments like these that show why there's so much resentment building toward healthcare providers. It's not just about this particular tragedy, but the long history of negligence and profit-driven decisions that have harmed real people.
Let me just start off this video by saying I do not condone violence by any means, but let's talk about what happened today with the United Healthcare CEO. Assuming this guy has a family, no one deserves this. But as a mom who was 9 months pregnant, sitting in the emergency room with my 1-year-old baby, being told she had a giant brain tumor that was causing her brain to essentially swell out of her head. She sat in the hospital for 3 days. She needed to be transferred to New York City so she could have emergency brain surgery. And instead, we sat in the hospital for 3 days because United Healthcare refused to approve the transfer via ambulance from the hospital where we live to another state. And at that point, I was ready to just get in my car and take her there myself, but United told us if we left the hospital by our own will and it wasn't via ambulance, they were not going to cover her at the next hospital we went to. And I vividly remember being on the phone with United Healthcare for days and days, 9 months pregnant, about to give birth alone while my other baby was sitting in a hospital room. And again, this isn't to condone violence whatsoever. All I'm saying is that I do not doubt for a second what the motive of that suspect was.
You're absolutely right. Hearing these real-life stories brings a level of gravity and understanding that numbers and policies simply can't convey. The mother's experience with her baby's life-threatening condition and the lack of care from the healthcare system really underscores the frustration and pain that people endure when they feel neglected by the very institutions meant to protect and care for them. When you consider the systemic issues within healthcare companies, it's not just about an individual story, it's a broader pattern of corporate behavior that affects countless lives. This situation, much like the tragedies you've discussed with rappers and other figures involved in violence, is a reminder that every action has a ripple effect. It's difficult to fully comprehend the extent of these actions without understanding the human side of the story. The frustration and anger people feel, whether it's directed toward healthcare or other industries, often comes from feeling like their voices and needs are ignored in the face of profit-driven decisions. You're absolutely right. Stories of violence can often seem senseless and chaotic, and it's hard to truly grasp the mindset behind such actions. However, when you take a step back, especially in a case like Luigi Mangione's, there are deeper layers at play. In this case, the frustration with corporate behavior, particularly from companies that profit at the expense of people's well-being, plays a significant role in shaping his actions. It's important to acknowledge that while the crime itself can't be justified, understanding the systemic issues that drive individuals to take extreme measures can help create a more nuanced conversation. When people feel trapped by a system that ignores their struggles and well-being, whether it's in healthcare, employment, or other areas, there can be a tipping point where they feel that they have no other recourse. This doesn't excuse the crime, but it does open up a broader conversation about the real impact of these corporations on everyday lives. It's a reminder that the human cost of corporate decisions often goes unnoticed until it reaches a breaking point. The use of artificial intelligence in healthcare, particularly in the processing of insurance claims, has raised significant concerns, especially when it leads to denials of coverage for individuals who need it most. The example you're mentioning, NH-Predict, an AI algorithm developed by Navi Health and acquired by United Healthcare, highlights how AI is being leveraged by big corporations to streamline their processes, often at the cost of patient care. AI systems like NH-Predict are designed to assess claims and determine the necessity of care based on data inputs. However, the issue arises when these algorithms, while efficient, may prioritize financial considerations over the unique needs of individual patients. This has led to situations where people have been denied critical coverage due to the algorithm's decisions, even though their medical needs are urgent. Such practices create a cold, transactional environment where the profit motive outweighs the actual health and well-being of patients. This is a major point of contention, as these algorithms, often built without a human touch, fail to consider the nuances of individual cases. The result is a growing distrust in AI's role in the healthcare industry, especially when it comes to making life-altering decisions about coverage. This kind of system is a prime example of how technology, when applied without ethical considerations, can exacerbate systemic problems in healthcare and leave individuals vulnerable. The use of AI algorithms like NH-Predict in healthcare, designed to analyze health records and predict the duration of care, has raised significant ethical concerns. While the goal is to streamline decision-making, the downside is that these systems can prioritize cost-cutting measures over patient welfare. When companies focus on profits, cutting corners can lead to situations where people are denied essential care based on algorithmic decisions, rather than individualized assessments by human professionals.
So it's a circumstantial case. There's a lot of building blocks that the prosecution needs to fit into a puzzle in order to prove the case beyond a reasonable doubt. It's not a done deal at this point. I think at this rate, he has an opportunity to argue identity, that he was misidentified, that this was not actually him. And then based on the other evidence that comes out, potentially linking him to the case, and what we're hearing, he might go with an insanity defense. So right now it's a little bit up in the air. There's a lot of opportunity for him to poke holes in the prosecution's case and form reasonable doubt. I do not think it's an open and shut case at this moment.
A lot of the stories we cover wouldn't be possible without the help of our amazing sponsors like Odoo. I'm sure a lot of you watching this might be business owners or thinking about starting a side hustle. Well, Odoo can help. Odoo is a free all-in-one business management software with tools to help you run your business. I mean, look, I'm a cat mom and I want my cat buttons to get some brand deals. Using Odoo's website builder, I built a site for my cat buttons in just minutes, thanks to easy tools like AI copywriting and drag and drop features. 5 minutes later, boom, check it out. I have buttonsthecat.com. So I want to thank Odoo for sponsoring our videos, and for our amazing viewers, you can start building your site now and get a free domain for the first year with our link odoo.com/lcnews24. Again, that's odoo.com/lcnews24 to try Odoo now for free. This case has really kind of captivated the nation, from different political sides, but also